Thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking everyone in attendance for taking the time to participate in this webinar. We're extremely pleased to have this opportunity to speak with you today, and very grateful to NELLCO for assisting on getting the word out. As you may have noticed, I clicked on the record, so we're looking forward to sharing this recording with you and with any of your colleagues who are interested but weren't able to make it. So, there you go. So we're extremely excited to be joined by so many exceptional schools on this call. Most of you attending are current clients and looking to learn what's new with vLex Global. And we hope to give you ways that you can improve your ability to extract value from your subscription. Some of you joining are curious about vLex, or maybe you're exploring the possibility of bringing a world of legal intelligence to your schools. So one way or another, whatever brought you here, thank you for coming. So my name is Colin Lachance. My role is as Interim General Manager for vLex in North America, and I'm happy to be your host today. I'm joined on this call by my colleagues, Susan Cunningham, she's the Director of Strategic Partnerships for vLex, and Sylvia Ramos, our Head of Academic Solutions for the Americas. Now, you've probably had an opportunity to deal with either Susan or Sylvia in the past, and I know at least a few of the people who joined this call, I've had the pleasure of speaking with you as well. Susan and Sylvia are based in Miami, and I am based in Ottawa, Canada. During the Q&A portion of this event, and at any time afterwards, any of Sylvia, Susan, or I would be pleased to speak with you to understand how we might be able to help you, help serve you better. So to make best use of your time today, we're keeping the formal presentation to under 30 minutes. And then we're leaving 15 minutes for questions. The presentation will proceed as shown in this slide. As you can see, what we want is for you to be able to come away with an understanding of our service, how to use it, and also where we as a company are taking the service. Also, as we mentioned in the invitation for this event, existing subscribers can expect a complimentary bonus that will enhance the value of their current subscription. And naturally, we only realized a few hours ago that we misspelled complimentary in that invitation. So when you send it off to a bunch of law schools, librarians in particular, you should be more careful about grammar. And by you, I mean me. It was my error. In any event, we look forward to telling you about that during the presentation as well. So to begin, and this is mostly for the benefit of those who are not previously familiar with vLex, a brief introduction to the company and our services. vLex was founded about 20 years ago with an initial mission of improving online access to legal information in Spain. But that mission grew quickly. Within a few years, the company expanded its content resources beyond Spain and expanded its suite of products beyond basic research tools. Over the years that followed, vLex took on the challenge of amassing the world's largest collection of legal information and began serving the institutions with a need for what is now broadly known in library circles as foreign, comparative, and international law. And as a supplier to universities around the world, as well as courts, governments, law firms, and enterprises, vLex now provides access to over 100 million documents from over 100 countries. This service, the vLex Global service that we'll be spending most of our time on today, is the service for which vLex is best known in North America. Having served universities in the United States and Canada for over a decade, these schools have known that the broadest source of foreign legal information and the best source for legal information from Latin America have come from vLex. What our North American academic clients may not know is that this particular service offering in this particular geographic market has typically represented a small portion of vLex's total operations. In Spain and throughout Latin America, vLex has operated for years as a premium service provider, going head-to-head in domestic markets with Westlaw and others in areas of research, legal analytics, practice management, and other markets for all customer sizes and types. A little over 2 years ago, through partnerships with U.S. legal publisher Casemakers and partnerships with others, vLex incorporated a robust U.S. content collection comprised of over 12 million primary law documents and 8 million secondary source documents to develop a U.S. product capable of serving as a substitute for other offerings. I'll make one final comment about this corporate evolution before returning to a specific discussion of the vLex global service, and it's this. vLex is now combining the entirety of its experience as a competitor in hotly contested domestic legal markets, legal information and technology markets, and it's bringing that experience to bear to all of its platforms, all of its major markets, and all of its customer verticals. And so what that means for your schools and your users is that the vLex platforms are continuously improving at global speed. The value you receive from the vLex service has always gone beyond mere access to a foreign legal resource. But with our new platform and its advanced capabilities, such as personalization and operational integration capabilities, we think you can now truly understand vLex Global as your world of legal intelligence. All right. So what is the world? Well, for us, vLex Global currently delivers legal information from over 100 countries. As this coverage map shows, the depth will vary from country to country. The dark blue is where you will find comprehensive coverage of case law, administrative decisions, legislation, and extensive secondary source resources. The medium blue area represents those countries where we have extensive coverage. And that means in most cases we have the national or federal level courts, that is, the highest courts, and as well as constitutional courts and federal legislation. But we may also have subnational coverage and deep secondary source resources in those countries as well. Within your academic subscriptions, that means you have, at minimum, access to the national level content, and in many cases, you also have access to state or provincial content, in addition to secondary sources in those areas of comprehensive and extensive coverage. The light blue represents those countries where the coverage may be limited to a few sources. Our objective, and one that we have been aggressively pursuing, is to turn as many of the gray and light blue countries as possible into medium blue, and as many of those medium blue into dark blue. And we think we're making great progress. The countries on this page represent those where we have primary law coverage ranging from extensive to comprehensive, and still we press on. Within the past 90 days, we've made significant additions to our European coverage. And in the next 90 days, we expect to add even more. In fact, we're going to continue going. Our objective, as much as possible, is if it can be obtained, we will obtain it. And within many of the countries where our primary content is already robust, the content is greatly supplemented by a range of secondary sources. So that's the background. That is the general scope of the service. And now let's actually get into the specific view of the website. Because what we want to show you is our new platform, but I'm going to begin by showing you our public website. There's something to share here for you. And this is an area that over the past year, we've been adding content. Oh, I see a little pop-up bubble in the chat. Let's just make sure we're not helping something. Leo from University of Chicago asks about coverage of regulations. Yes, we will go into a little bit more detail about that later on, but in areas where we refer to coverage of primary law legislation, it also generally includes the regulations for that. Okay. Now, so our vLex.com, our homepage, is where we're putting more and more information to help you understand how to make the most of your service. It's particularly valuable in some respects for institutions like yours. So I'm going to point to a few areas, and then we'll show you where you can find that from within the app itself. So across the top, content coverage, that's the area that we've showed you already with that visual map. But you have the ability to pull down a full source list of the coverage. Now, we're working on this list. Presently, it's a giant CSV, so you have to make sure you import it in a way that pulls the content into various fields. That is a top-level view of everything that we have, but not necessarily things that are included in your subscription. So we're working on making sure that you can access that information a lot more readily. Other areas that I think are worth paying some attention here for purposes of this call is to provide reminders both of the availability of services like MARC records and counter compliance statistics, but more importantly, to show you how to get there. So from within the app itself and from within this website, we provide the links into a new knowledge base that we're continuously expanding and populating. Oh, pardon the fact that this is currently showing as private. Of course, I picked the wrong one, but I'm going to cheat a little bit and go to the Spanish version, translate the page, and there we go. We have the information about what you can do to access the MARC records and load them into your system. For any items that I'm going to refer to specifically, the contact, for instance, should you need it, is Sylvia Ramos. And again, her email is attached to this presentation, which will be shared, and it will be included in a follow-up. So, counter compliance statistics. One of the most important things that we hear from our clients is, how do I make sure that this is being used, and how do I understand what is being used? So again, we can find our access through to that information there. If you are set up with us, you probably already have something in the nature of either Easy Proxy or some other single sign-on option. If you do not yet, by all means, take a look at this page and let us know which one works for you, and we'll work with you to get that signed up. Finally, this interconnection over here to allow our resources to be linked through to your Ex Libris SFX accounts, something that would allow you to, again, to have better sense of your content availability, but also so that your users can have better sense of the availability of that content so that they can discover it a lot more readily. And in all cases, these are going to go into our knowledge base. Now, you can connect into the knowledge base from a few different areas. One, through specific articles that you might find here. Two, through the Help Center that's listed down here and is also available through the app. And three, through the Librarian Center. And the Librarian Center goes into a little bit more detail about some of the information that you have. For example, you can pull down different content types instead of pulling down just one giant master list. And we generally try and keep this information update and current, so we're up to monthly updates to December here, and in some of our other records, we're current to February for the information that's being made available. The Help Center is where you can get into more information, and this is for you and your users, to understand how to use vLex. So with the transition from our original platform to the new platform, there's greater opportunities to make use of this information. All right, so let's go to the new platform. One of the first things that you'll notice, in addition to the color change, is that your little vLex global box that appeared up there is not there anymore. Instead, what we've done is we've taken the different vLex experiences from different countries and from the vLex global and combined it into what we're calling our universal platform. And through the universal platform, you have the ability to carry out your searches in both the full scope of the global coverage, or within only the countries, or in the case of the United States, sub-jurisdictions that you want to look at as part of your search. So right now we have it selected on Select All Countries. I can turn that off and say, today I want to search in Mexico, Nicaragua, Latvia, and Spain. Apply that as default, and I can use that filter in advance to carry out a search. Why would I choose those countries? Not sure. But the point is, you have the ability to either pre-select your filters in advance or apply them after the fact in response to your search reviews. most of the search experience begins in the same way. We have the sidebar that allows you to approach advanced search or browsing. And we also have the omnibar at the top that would allow you to type in your search. There's predictive elements based on common search terms, based on references to citations, based on connections with books and other key resources that you find there. So this is a great way of beginning. But I want to start by showing you the browse, because the browse is another way to understand what we actually have in the system right now. So I have my account set as default to the United States, and I believe on this particular call of NELLCO members, we only have U.S. schools, although there are some Canadian schools who are also NELLCO members. But the only difference between a Canadian school, what they would see here, and what a U.S. school would see is we have a geographic default of this account to the United States. And so the initial breakdowns under browse are specific to the United States. If it were a Canadian school, it would be specific to the breakdowns available in Canada. But it's this click here on international content that I wanted to draw your attention to. Because in browsing international content, you can begin your searches specifically in the country that you want without necessarily, or browse rather, without necessarily having to use that search bar. And what you'll see as you scroll through here is that in areas where we have multiple countries. I mean, North America, we have good coverage of everything, but in some areas, Central, South, and the Caribbean, we have a listing of the countries where we'll have deeper resources. Like, for example, if I go to Venezuela, very big in the news right now, I want to make sure I understand what's happening. Laws and regulations, case law, books and journals, newspapers. This could be particularly interesting to me, so I might want to go into that. Or if I wanted to focus on laws and regulations, I can do it that way too. However, if I want to back up a little bit here and I wanted to look at a broader scope of coverage, I can actually get into even smaller jurisdictions. And this is where we get into the light blue jurisdictions. Now, we may not have a lot in the Cayman Islands, but you can find something. So we have Mondac articles specific to the Mondac Cayman Islands as an example. Similarly, when you look at Europe, you can do the same thing. The listed countries are where you can expect to find extensive or comprehensive coverage. And all will take you to the smaller jurisdictions where we have slightly less coverage. For rest of the world, India is where we have a fair bit of coverage right now. But if there's someplace you really want to take a look to see what we have, you can get here. Now, in addition to growing our European content and increasing the depth of our current country coverage, we're also actively working on bringing in content from other jurisdictions. China is a high priority, as is Middle East and Africa. So Susan Cunningham on the call, this is one of her main focuses, is bringing that additional content into the platform. And finally, we have a category broadly of international courts, treaties, and so on. Here we'll have things that incorporate, for example, international arbitral boards for things like domain registries. We have things like that. They don't quite fall in one place or another. It's a little bit distinct from EU, which has a specific coverage with respect to these other ones. These are probably organizations that may have a UN affiliation or something else. Again, I saw a question pop by that asked which African countries. This is being pursued almost, I guess, on a demand basis. So we do not currently have a prioritized list beyond the obvious of working with the larger jurisdictions first, where it's available, but feedback from our clients on which countries they want us to focus on will cause us to focus on those countries. Okay, now with respect to searching all of this, this is one of the other things that I want to make sure that you have a good sense of. Obviously, we've identified a lot of countries. Now, when we pull in the content, in the language in which it's available. But we make sure that we give you a way to find that. So if I use our automated translation tool, I can carry out a search either across the entirety, make sure I'm all countries and international. I can carry out a search, for example, for a subject of wrongful dismissal. I can set the system to translate. I can choose to have it translate the search into any of these languages, or in this case, I'm going to keep all of them. And I'm going to run the search. So what the vLex is doing now is creating translations for each of 14 different languages. I have the ability to review and edit those translations. So if I want to make sure that the German was correct, or the Spanish, Portuguese, Swedish, etc. was correct, I have the ability to go in and make that amendment. What's delivered up to me as a user is content from across all jurisdictions that included the translation. And as you can see here, for example, we have, again, wrongful dismissal, but it's been translated into Spanish, and it's delivered back the original result. I can look at the translation of the result. Here, it was unjustified dismissal. And within the document itself, I can set myself to pursue the translations in ways that make sense for me. So I'm going to say only this one. Now that I've made that translation, I can say, how do I want to read it? I can read it in parallel text. I can switch to the document in original view, or I can just go and view the translation. So one thing I want to point out, and I'll be emphasizing this at the end, is beyond this reintroduction of vLex and introduction of our new platform, we intend to have more webinars over the coming months that delve more deeply into the specific functionalities of the system. So while this is informative, the subsequent ones will be educational, where we will work specifically on issues that people want specific training on. And so that's when I'll get into a number of other things. But the last thing I want to show you here, before moving on to a discussion of our US content and our AI solutions, is this little corner box up top. Now, in this particular case, I'm using a personal account, but within this box, you have the ability to manage your accounts and manage your users, manage your statistics, and so on. So this is where you want to spend time if you're overseeing your services, because it will allow you to go into that kind of detail that you need. And again, happy to take your questions at any time subsequent to this call and help walk you through some of these things. All right. And now, if I can do my best to keep on time, I'm going to spend the next 3 to 4 minutes talking about US and artificial intelligence. So let's start with US. So now I've taken my account and now I'm looking strictly at the United States. Our US coverage has 12 million primary law documents and 8 million secondary source documents. It's quite good. And I'm very pleased to say that we are offering at no charge to our existing NELLCO clients for the balance of 2019, free access to your institution for our vLex US. So you'll have a chance to experience our tool with areas of law that you may know best. I know some of you focus specifically on foreign comparative and international law, but your colleagues may not. As we move the new platform into your system, it would be great for you to be able to gather feedback from as many people in as many ways as possible about the system itself. And if the best way for them to do that is to experience it through researching US law, then that's fantastic. All right. Now, our US law, as I mentioned, contains a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go into much more detail about that right now, but what I am going to do is show you how this little box up here, Vincent, interacts with our US content. Vincent is, I'm going to press this little button and you'll see a little pop-up. It's an intelligent assistant. We developed an AI tool that operates in 9 countries in 2 languages, English and Spanish, and it can work with everything that we know about the content in our collections, the jurisdictions, the citations, the key phrases, similar to other documents, relationship, and the overall knowledge graph within the system. And we can translate that information to you, or transfer rather that information to you, so you can make good use of the tool and improve your own research. So let me give you an example of how this works. So Vincent is now within the US collection, a little pop-up that appears alongside any of the documents in the US collection. And you can have Vincent analyze any document. And here's what it would do with this particular Mondac article. So it's reviewed the article, and Vincent has said, well, I didn't find any citations in it, so I don't have anything to point to there. However, what I did find are these key phrases. And I've used these phrases to go off and search the database for other things that have a relationship with these key phrases. But I haven't turned back everything, because enforcement notice might turn up a whole pile of stuff that I really don't care about. Vincent has also gone through and taken the text of the document, and using a semi-supervised deep learning approach, it's compared the text of the document to the text of any other document in the system, and it's found documents that have highly similar, similar relationships. So we can use this to find, oops, the wrong button. Here we go. We can use this to find content that's similar to what we have. Now, the circumstances where we might want to use Vincent are several. One is if, in the case of this, we have a news article and we want to find a link to relevant legislation or case law that, even though the article didn't mention it explicitly, it has some bearing on it. We can also use it to find related content, learn more about an issue. When a document includes references, such as case law, using Vincent can help us find related cases at another level, over and above what we understand as traditional search methods. So, for example, in a traditional search approach, when I want to note up case law or shepherdize key cite, apply your favorite term, I look at things like the cases that have been cited and the legislation that's been cited within to see if it's still good law or not. I look at subsequent citations, who's gone on to talk about this case in the future. But Vincent looks at all of that and more in order to find the things that are most prominent. Now, you can use this to find something that's the most prominent, or what a lot of people would like to use this for is to find the thing that's missing. So if Vincent is analyzing a brief that either you've written or the other side has written, it's a great way to load it up and say, Vincent, tell me what has a strong relationship with this case, with this authority that hasn't been cited within the document. So Vincent is fantastic for doing this kind of work. So again, it's a great way to check your own work, check the work of others. I can describe it in a law firm context as it's like having a junior lawyer have a senior lawyer look over their shoulder and say, did you think about the Smith case? Or it's like a senior lawyer who doesn't have the junior lawyer at his disposal to carry through that first round of heavy research so that the senior lawyer can look for the Smith case in the results. We have it baked into the system, but you can also operate it by dragging a document in. So Word, PDF, or text, and that analysis will happen. We do not retain the document. Once the text is extracted, the document is discarded, and what remains is a query. It's like Vincent is creating the longest, most complicated Boolean query you can think of in order to create that knowledge graph. And only the query remains. Because the query remains, you can use Vincent to analyze new content as it comes in to see how it compares to your source document. Now, the last thing I want to show you is among our AI activities is Iceberg. Now, Iceberg is the system that powers vLex. It's the system through which our 2,000 sources, courts, governments, publishers, and others, we process the material through we create the metadata, run the machine learning models, and build new solutions. And so why I wanted to show you this is because tools like Vincent can be augmented to exist outside of the vLex platform. They can apply directly as a Chrome extension or as a Word plugin. They can apply within your existing knowledge management tool to create enrichments and find relationships of content. And Iceberg is the engine that powers that. Vincent and Iceberg in combination can also do things like analyze your collection or engage with your content and intermingle it with the vLex collection. And the way it does that is through, again, just the effective tagging and searching and so on. So if you can imagine doing something like pulling any kind of document, your collection, running it through and saying, what are these documents about? Well, we have an AI tool for that. We can classify documents using MLB key numbers. So this was built on a key number system developed in Canada about 40 years ago, for which we had several 100,000 cases. It was originally modeled on the West key number system. And so this allowed us to train systems in a common law context to understand the area of law. So this kind of tool can be used to other elements like extracting key phrases from documents, extracting entities, who is the document talking about, and then using that information to create tags and create links back into other services. So this is an element that we wanted to bring to your attention, not because it's part of vLex Global, and not because it's part of vLex US, but because it is part of the evolution of law schools and of legal education, legal knowledge engineering. This idea of understanding how the systems work, and in order to pull out the value and create the products and the services and extract the knowledge that's relevant, that a service provider itself may not always be the one best suited to create or to create on a mass scale. vLex is Iceberg is the kind of tool that organization can bring in and make use of to create, to build, and to expand. And so with that, I'm going to conclude my formal remarks and open up the microphone. I'll unmute and welcome your questions. So you can either tap them in through the chat or speak them aloud. Oh. All right. Do we have someone who is the brave individual looking to go first?
Hello, Colin.
Oh, hello.
Hi, it's Susan Cunningham, your colleague. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And Leo, thanks for your question regarding Africa. As Colin did the shout out to me, I am the point person to make those alliances and look to the new sources that we'll be bringing onto the platform. And I can say that in that area, yes, I mean, it is very kind of demand driven what regions we look to, but we have had a fair amount of feedback regarding Africa, and we are looking to add sources in, I can tell you kind of regionally, but South Africa, Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Nigeria, Swaziland, like really regionally, but through potentially a partner. So that is something that I'm working on. And as Colin also mentioned in the slide, the short-term additions are really European focused right now. So, but I am currently working on China, Africa, some other sources in the Middle East like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. So yeah, just to give you a little feedback there.
All right, thank you, Susan. And Leo has another question for us. Changing the default home or browse in the new universal platform. So the default home and browse is connected to your geography. So in order to change it, we have to change your geography. Now, at an individual account level, the user can make that change. So, for example, in the demonstration I did, I purposely made sure that my default geography read United States so that we could show the United States. I have the ability to make that change. We'll have to get back to you to let you know if it can be changed at an institution level. But where you have a personal account, yes, it can be fairly simply changed. Question about more details about the key number system used in Iceberg. So the key number system, as I mentioned, developed in Canada by a publisher that started in the 1960s named Maritime Law Book. That content is now part of, we acquired it when that business went down. The key number system had 150 topics and 48,000 subtopics. And so at the top level of the key number system, we had excellent data to work with in order to create the models to allow us to predict with a high degree of accuracy the primary topic of any document. It has the ability to be broken down in order to predict secondary and tertiary documents. The model itself actually can be transferred to use things like notice of suit codes from Pacer. Presently, it's not set up to do that, but it is something that we're looking at. So the ontology that's used was built for one purpose, but the mathematical or algorithmic model that was developed as a result has the ability to be transferred into different ontologies. So if you have something that you say, well, this is all great, but our school uses this, we can actually work with that and model it. Because one other thing I didn't speak to in the Iceberg system is that we actually have the feedback tools directly built in there. So we can do things like have a user go through 10, 20, 30 samples and just click a little happy, sad icon, depending on whether it's a good prediction or a bad prediction, and use that to continue to train the model. So I hope that answers that question for you. And just an extension on that. So that and a lot of the other models that are built into the Vincent tool. And if I didn't specify, I apologize when I went through it. I did indicate that our current vLex Global clients and sign up to vLex Global for the balance of the year will get free access to the vLex US. The Vincent functionality within vLex US and within the other countries will be made available on a complimentary basis during the month of March. For that, afterwards, it becomes a premium add-on. Take the opportunity of the lull to actually ask Sylvia Ramos, our head of academic solutions, to say hello.
Hi, thank you, Colin. Thank you everything. Thank you for your explanation, and thanks to you for attending this webinar. We're very happy to have the opportunity to show you our new platform that we're very proud of. Also, I wanted to take the opportunity to remind you that I'm normally the point of contact with our US clients. So anything that you need regarding integration, maybe statistics, or things that can help the library to make the most out of vLex, just let me know. I'm always available for you.
Thank you, Sylvia. And the next question, what is the rollout date for the new interface? It's actually been a soft rollout now for the past couple of months. And so what that means is we have some clients who have been exclusively using the new interface for a couple of months. Over the past week, with some different classifications of clients, they've been presented the ability to toggle between the old and the new. And I think within the next week, that capability will be fully pushed out. But frankly, anybody who's ready to make the switch now, we can make the switch. The platform is ready to roll. What we're doing is we're just making sure that we're tidying up the corners. And so what that means is we found a few spots here and there where maybe we needed a little pop-up notification, or maybe we needed an explanation, or the translation wasn't 100%. Like for example, and I'll show you another one which I skipped over earlier, is things like this. We're just catching and making sure we fix it. For example, you can get to the library center from here, but oh, good, we did fix the number. I think this morning it was an international number to Spain. So these are the little things that we're catching, but otherwise the platform is ready to go. Okay, and I think maybe because I promised to only use 45 of your minutes, we'll stick around if there are people who want to ask questions, but just to go as a closing comment, again, thank you again for your time. We regret that we won't be able to meet some of you at the NELLCO Symposium coming up in March, but we do hope to have further opportunities to talk to you again, either directly or through our educational webinars as they are rolled out. But we hear about them.